program of Veterans Day 2013. I'd like to start off our program with an invocation by Father Decker. Let us pray. God, all-powerful Father, who has given those in the armed forces the power to defend this country, bless all veterans who have served this country. We pay tribute and honor to all those who have faithfully served in the armed forces. We especially honor those who fought on and off the battlefield, those who have been wounded, and those who have gave up their lives for this country. Fill the heroic hearts of our noble soldiers with the grace of patriotism. Accept the red and white stripes of their sacrifice and the shining stars of their obedience, so that as one nation under God, this country may sing to your glory and freedom forever. And we make our prayer through Christ our Lord. Thank you, Father Decker. Please stand
for the national anthem. Our first speaker today will be Judge Robert Going.
My grandfather, Des Nichols, passed away. He was a veteran of World War I and one of the truly great veterans in our city's history. He was a member, founding member of Post 701 of the American Legion, was a Legionnaire all his life, served 2 terms as commander during World War II, during which time he had Saturday night entertainments every week for the veterans and the servicemen in uniform. He memorized about 400 of the worst jokes ever written and recited them the rest of his life. But the morning after he passed away, it was a Monday morning, I showed up in his lawyer's office, Chandler Knight, a fellow veteran of World War I, and I told him that his friend had passed away, and I handed him a leather satchel, beat up as could be, had been sitting in a closet in my grandfather's house for decades. In the satchel, in a sealed glass container, was a bottle of cognac that had been 50 years old in 1920 when they had formed the Last Man's Club. And I was handing to Chandler Knight that bottle because he was the last man standing from that Last Man's Club from World War I. I thought about that this weekend because Saturday, 2 days ago, 3 of the last 4 veterans of the Doolittle raid got together for the last time. The 4th was too ill to attend and toasted separately. But they opened the bottle of cognac that General Doolittle had given them in 1946, and rather than wait for the last man, the 3 of them toasted their departed comrades from World War II and each other. And they saw each other for the last time. Over the last 6 years, I worked on a book on Amsterdam and World War II. And I rushed it out earlier this year because I realized that nearly all the people I was writing about were already gone. I was fortunate to have been able to interview a few of them before they died. There's probably no more than about 5 or 6% of our servicemen from World War II who are still alive today. And they're in their late 80s and 90s. Happy to see Joel Kaplan in the back of the crowd there. He's one of them. Still fitting into his Army uniform out by the flag post. And it wasn't just men, it was men and women. My mother-in-law, who will be 93 next month, served in the waves during World War II, one of 6 members of her immediate family to serve in World War II. And I think of the widow Riggio on Broman Avenue, who sent 6 of her sons to the war, and the Conti family, who sent 6 sons and a foster son who died on Iwo Jima, and the Bubniak family that sent 7 sons into World War II. This is an amazing community. Where do we find such men is the title of my book, and it's something that President Reagan said over and over and over again over the years. Where do we find such men? Men like Jack Blanchfield, who came from here, never told his story for 50 years to his family or anybody else about his activity as a POW, where as a private first class he ended up in charge of over 100 men who managed to escape, and he had his own private army behind the German lines at the end of the war. Never told anybody. I had the fortune of having Richard Dantini in court in front of me one day about 15 years ago, incidentally a witness in a case that I was handling. And when the lawyers got all done, I said, Mr. Dantini, I have a question myself. Can you tell us what you were doing on June 6, 1944 at approximately 6 a.m.? And then he told me his story about being an 18-year-old kid in the first wave ashore on Omaha Beach in one of those landing craft that was memorialized in several books, because virtually everybody who landed in that first wave got shot up. Within 10 minutes, they had no officers. Within half an hour, there were no non-commissioned officers. It was every man for himself, hiding behind obstructions in the water and then moving forward when he realized he's sitting next to a landmine or a floating mine. Shot 4, 5, 6 times. Crawled his way behind a rock at the end of the beach and passed out, and he was left for dead. Somehow they found him the next day, and he came home after a year's rehab and lived the life of a neighborhood grocer. How do they do that? How do you see the horror of D-Day, the horror of war, and come back and live a normal life? These are our heroes. They walk here on the streets of Amsterdam. There's hundreds of them. Thousands. There were over 4,000 people who served in World War II alone. And they came from every walk of life in this town. They had fathers who were doctors and judges and lawyers and cops and politicians, mill owners and mill hands, salesmen, shopkeepers, icemen, and ragmen. Not all of them had stories that made it into a book, or ever will make it into a book. But they all served their country when their country called. And whatever they were asked to do, they did. There was a fellow named John Wojcik. Probably nobody here even remembers him. He was in the class of 1939 at Amsterdam High School. He was killed in a plane accident training during World War II. And, you know, but for his obituary, I don't think he probably got much attention after that. I found his high school yearbook. And under his picture, this is 1939, 2.5 years before the war started for us. Under his picture it says, "Everyone who does his best is a hero." And that is every veteran, every man and woman who ever wore the uniform of their country. They did their best. Where do we find such men? Where do we find them? Folks, they dwelt among us. They are our relatives, our neighbors, our friends. They are our heroes. Thank you.
Judge Going. And now some words from our Mayor, Ann Thane.
Good morning, all. Thank you for coming out on this chilly day. It's not the most ideal weather at the end of November for a gathering, so I especially appreciate you making the effort to come here today and pay tribute to our veterans. For my part of the ceremony, I'd like to tell you a story, and perhaps you can extrapolate where these men come from my story. Once upon a time, I stood at the side of the road on Guy Park Avenue and watched the Amsterdam veterans honor their comrades by walking a length of the city road to their World War I memorial. The day was brisk but beautiful. Clusters of my neighbors stood reverently, clasping their coats against a light wind with gloved hands, smiling and greeting folks they've known their whole lives. Much like today, they were a mix of hats, scarves, and wool in the colors of autumn: gold, plum, brown, and rust. Most were older folks, and a few families brought together several generations of the same height, weight, and hair pattern. They talked quietly with each other, noting the falling leaves, fleeting clouds, and onset of winter in the coming weeks. I held the hand of my little boy Ian, who at the time had only been about 4 or 5 years old. We were excited and happy to be at our first official parade in our partnership as mother and son. He was so young and perfect, a sprite with an immediate smile and mischievous glint in his eye. He could not imagine how deep my love for him was, because for a child it is a given. He was born into the brilliant embers of my attention. He did not know of my long wait for him or my doubt that I'd ever be lucky enough to have a child. I gripped his mittened hand tightly as the procession started. We watched as the veterans from wars long gone began to pass our station. A scattering of very elderly men that had survived the war to end all wars and 8 decades were driven in cars, still proudly wearing their caps, insignias, awards, badges, and accoutrements. These men sat in stoic silence, weathered as the dried leaves, bearing witness to the time that had passed and memories that would soon be remembered only in books instead of recounted person to person. They seemed to not notice the gathering around them. Their clouded eyes looked ahead in anticipation of their destination. Men and a few women of World War II, who at the time were then in their late 60s and early 70s, followed these vets. This was a larger group of soldiers than the first, still vital and dignified, survivors of a war of unthinking brutality and loss. They wore and still wear their experiences with such pride. They had lived through a time of unsullied patriotism and vigorous optimism, when you could count on God and country and your neighbor. The charm of that period lives on in the music of the 40s, lively with syncopated jazz riffs and sadly sweet romantic ballads. Though their marching step was somewhat unpolished, they walked with a unity that can only come from the knowledge of their sure achievement in saving the world from tyranny. Next came the men of the Korean War, men in their late 40s and early 50s. This war is sadly referred to as the Forgotten War. These men walked with a solid gait, having persevered without the public accolades and attention of those that had served in the decade before or those that would come after. These soldiers walked with some ease and casually waved to bystanders. As I watched, I understood that had my father lived a longer life, he would have marched with this group. I squeezed my son's hand and pointed out the beat of their feet on the pavement, and noted that my heart beat with that time. The next wave of soldiers started to pass us. The Vietnam War veterans were not much older than I, and I thought about my friends that had fought in that war. The times were so tumultuous, and the decision to enter the military was more controversial than at any other time that had preceded it in all of history. I thought of Kevin, a happy-go-lucky kid in our neighborhood that had come back from the sweltering humidity of Vietnam, changed. More serious, with an uncharacteristic edge in his demeanor. To my knowledge, he never spoke of his time there, not to his family, and certainly not to us, his hometown friends. That he and others had returned to a nation that questioned the actions of these young men and women still haunts our days. These young soldiers made the commitment to serve our government without public reverence for their decision. This is a wound that must never be delivered again. Contemporary men and women in service, marching crisply in unison, followed the vets of the 60s and 70s. Some had already served in the Gulf, and some could expect to be shipped to areas of conflict around the world at any time. They looked formidable in their desert combat uniforms, all tautly following command. I looked across the road at a mother anxiously scanning the unit for the unforgettable face of her child, and watched for the moment of recognition as she located the object of her love. Brimming with pride, she yelled out a name with joy and pointed rapidly so that her friends would not miss out on the gift of this moment. The realization of the sacrifice that she and her family had made was beginning to reach me like a scent carried on a light breeze. The ROTC students from Amsterdam High School followed in step, their beautiful unlined faces intent on their task. They led younger children informally walking together from the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, and tying it all up at the end, the youngest Webelos and Brownies that may begin this march at age 7. Suddenly, the breath was pulled from my chest, and the full impact of this parade of souls came to me. I stared incredulously down at the little boy at the end of my arm and could see the whole of this impossible offering. The oldest veteran to the youngest silly sprout walks a path that tears our loved ones from the warmth of our hearth and sends them to the edge of the earth for the ideals our government was built on. Regardless of politics, public furor, danger, or exhaustion, our soldiers serve willingly, selflessly, and courageously that we may continue to live in peace and prosperity. They enter into situations of loneliness, peril, boredom, and chaos that others may have hope. Those that have marched in parades have returned to us. Remember also that others have not, or that they have returned to us broken, in need of our full support as a nation and community, as friends and family. This is what Veterans Day is all about. Having grasped this concept as desperately as I had held the hand of my son so long ago, let us all acknowledge that there can be no greater calling than that of a soldier, and extend our deepest gratitude for the gifts that they have given so freely to us. Thank you to the Veterans Commission for continuing this tradition, and thank you with all of our hearts to each and every veteran gathered here today. God bless you and keep you forever and always.
My honor to be with you today, and the words we've heard already have been very moving. When President Wilson declared November 11th as the first commemoration of Armistice Day in 1919, it was meant to mark the end of World War I, the war to end all wars, and to honor the vets who lost their lives in that war. In 1954, at the urging of veteran service organizations, Congress and President Eisenhower changed Armistice Day to Veterans Day in order to observe the service and sacrifice of all of our country's veterans. This is a solemn day which commemorates the great bravery and great sacrifice demonstrated by the members of our armed forces. I'm very proud to serve on the Senate Standing Committee on Veterans, Homeland Security, and Military Affairs. In that position, I've met many veterans and service providers who are advocates for veterans' rights. They are amazingly dedicated, and they are fighting every day to help veterans who are unemployed or homeless or battling alcoholism or drug abuse. It is so important that we take this day to honor the men and women who have served. But to truly remember and thank our veterans for their sacrifices, we must also ensure that any veteran in need of support has the help they need. We owe a debt of gratitude to every man and woman who has served our nation in the armed forces, and these benefits and services and programs were created as a way to say thank you to our veterans. So when you see a veteran, please say thank you for your service, but also ask them how they're doing. Give them a chance to tell you their story. Give them a chance to tell you, I could use some help, and then please help them. I'm also very proud to announce that the governor has signed a bill that I co-sponsored to establish the Lieutenant Colonel Todd Clark Memorial Flag Presentment Program. This bill simply says that when the governor orders the flag to be flown at half-mast over the Capitol to honor a service member killed in action, that flag will then be presented to the next of kin of the fallen military service member at no cost. Currently, those flags are retired. Lieutenant Colonel Clark was a Guilderland native and a 17-year-old veteran of the U.S. Army, a 17-year veteran of the U.S. Army. After multiple combat tours in the Middle East, he was recently killed in the service of his nation. He had served with great distinction, and although he was seriously wounded during prior service, he always answered the call of duty. He was a true hero, and I am proud to have played a small role in creating that program in his honor. I also want to make mention and thank the young people who are here today, the ROTC, the marching band, the Girl Scouts and the Boy Scouts. We have to understand our traditions and make sure we're participating in them so that we carry them forward. Thank you all for being here today.
Good morning, everybody. It's an honor to join all of you here today for this ceremony. I'd like to take a moment to thank the Veterans Commission and to recognize all of our veterans and honor the courage and sacrifices of all the brave heroes in our military. New York State is home to more than 900,000 military veterans and families. And there are few images more powerful than those of soldiers returning home to their loved ones. And recently I've had the opportunity to welcome home some of our troops from serving overseas and watch them be reunited with their families, and it's truly a powerful image, and it's a great thing to see. The brave men and women of our military have made enormous sacrifices for us all. Their sacrifices have safeguarded our way of life, and without them our country would not nearly be what it is today. And each year on November 11th, our nation observes Veterans Day to honor and thank the men and women who have sacrificed so much for our country. There are many memorials and parades happening across the country, just like this one here today. This Veterans Day, let us take time out to reflect on all the brave sacrifice, on all of our brave heroes what they have sacrificed for our freedom. And as you heard today, take a moment to say thank you, and thank you for your service. The men and women in uniform, the heroes who fight across the world to defend our freedom, are an inspiration to us all. As a veteran myself and a member of the New York State Assembly, I'm committed to honoring and helping those who have served our country in the military. I remain dedicated to honoring and preserving the memory of those who have lost their lives in action, and will do everything to ensure the best for our troops and their families while at home and abroad. It's an honor to join you today here on Veterans Day. Thank you all for being here to honor our veterans. Thank you, and God bless America.
Shall see these presents greeting or honor the mayor on behalf of the people and city of Amsterdam, as this day awarded the Veteran Service Medal to the following named individuals. Joseph A. Pepp, for meritorious service while serving in the United States Navy from 8 August 1955 to 23 June 1957. Assigned aboard the USS Boston, the Navy's first cruiser to carry guided missiles, Senior Fire Control Technician Pepp was responsible for operating the range finding director. His proficiency was such that the 8-inch guns were able to obtain a circular probable error of only 10 yards at all ranges, and he was able to assist in the location and rescue of downed aircrew. A plank owner from the original crew, he has been active for decades with veterans of all ships that have borne the name USS Boston. Senior Fire Control Technician Pepp's dedication to his ship high skill, and performance of duty are in keeping with the highest traditions of the Armed Forces of the United States and reflect great credit upon him, the Naval Service, and the City of Amsterdam. Bruce E. Rayla, for meritorious service while serving in a variety of positions of increasing responsibility on active and reserve duty during the period August 1982 to February 2007, at which time he was retired as Technical Sergeant, 109th Civil Engineering Squadron, 109th Airlift Wing, New York Air National Guard. His decorations include the Air Force Achievement Medal, Air Reserve Meritorious Service Medal, Armed Forces Expeditionary Medal, Global War on Terrorism Medal, and the Iraqi Campaign Medal. He has served in Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Germany, England, and in New York City immediately after September 11th, 2001. This award is also made with special distinction for years of service as chairman of the Amsterdam Veterans Commission. Senior Master Sergeant Liberis' professionalism, devotion to duty, and dedication to his fellow veterans are in the highest traditions of the Armed Forces of the United States and reflect great credit upon himself, the military service, and the City of Amsterdam. Given under my hand in the City of Amsterdam this 11th day of November 2013, in the 128th year since the chartering of the city. Signed, Ann M. Thane, Mayor, City of Amsterdam. Official, Joe Pep, Chairman, Amsterdam Veterans Commission. Additionally, announcement of awards to Edward E.J. Nabick and Albert V. Mancini are announced. Presentations will be made at a later date.
Assist in making today's event possible. I'd like to congratulate this year's Service Award recipients. Thanks to our various guest speakers today. I'd like to thank also the American Post 701, the Sons of American Legion, the PAV. One announcement, the Junior ROTC also, thank you.
and the Amsterdam Marching Band. Thank you very much. One announcement. I don't know if you guys are familiar with our new memorial that we have up on Locust Avenue, up at Veterans Field. The pavers have been unveiled. The covering has been removed, and we have 90 pavers in right now. So if anybody would like to see the new pavers in place, please do so. It's a lovely memorial, and it's ongoing, and it's growing. We also have applications here today, and just wanted to show you one of the pavers.